A new report from Oxfam estimates that with the combined wealth billionaires accumulated last year alone, they could have ended extreme poverty 7 times over. But they chose to do nothing about poverty. So, billionaires are greedy. That's not surprising. And with Donald Trump being a billionaire, he's showing us that billionaires aren't just greedy, but they actually loathe the poor. And this is evident when you look at how he is now pushing for a cut to children's health insurance. And as Jake Johnson of Common Dreams reports, months after ramming through deficit-exploding tax cuts for billionaires and large corporations, President Donald Trump and the GOP are now looking for programs to slash to make up the difference, and they're starting with children's health care. According to a Washington Post report late Monday, Trump is sending a plan to Congress that calls for stripping more than $15 billion in previously approved spending, $7 billion of which would come from the broadly popular children's health insurance program. Described by one Trump administration official as the biggest rescission request that has ever been sent to Congress, the proposal needs a mere majority in both the House and Senate to pass. Speaking with the Post on Monday, Representative Mark Walker said the Trump administration has assured Republicans that this package of spending cuts is just the first of many. As the Post reported, CHIP is just one of over 30 programs the White House is moving to slash. So getting back to the question we posed last year about how he's going to pay for tax cuts for the rich, by taking from the poor. He's taking money away from the poor. He's cutting social safety net programs in order to pay for tax cuts for the rich. You know what I call that? Theft. That's theft. It's reverse Robin Hood. You're taking from the poor to give to the rich. See, because he wouldn't need to make up all of this additional revenue. He wouldn't need to cut funding for social safety net programs if he didn't just give billionaires trillions of dollars in tax cuts. But he wanted to make sure that he set himself up so when he retires, him and his family could live with absolutely no care in the world. They could be as rich as they possibly could be, and the poor continue to suffer. This is really the priorities of Republicans, and it's not just Donald Trump, even though he is a greedy billionaire and was a con man before he was elected. This is what the Republican Party wants. They often try to distance themselves from Donald Trump and talk about how he doesn't represent our party. More establishment figures will say this, but this is exactly what you wanted. I don't get the Republicans who are complaining about Donald Trump. I really don't. This is exactly what your party has been pushing for, overtly so, since the Reagan years. So why are you complaining about Donald Trump? Because he says nasty things on Twitter? Because he acts like a bully? He's wearing Republicanism on his sleeve. That's what he's doing. He puts an ugly face to the Republican Party's morally reprehensible policies, and he just comes out and admits that, yeah, he doesn't care about the poor. He's cutting children's health insurance. If I had to choose anyone in the country, which nobody should go without health care. If I had to choose anyone, though, certainly I would prioritize children, right? I mean, we want to make sure that the next generation is taken care of. But he's cutting children's health insurance programs. How despicable of a person do you have to be to call for a deep cut of $7 billion to the children's health insurance program? And again, this really, it's baffling when you think about how CHIP, which was a bipartisan effort before, is now a partisan issue. Now Republicans are attacking something they once supported. That kind of gives you one of many examples just how extremist the Republican Party has become. They are a far-right extremist party, and this proves it. So, I mean, this goes without saying, Donald Trump is taking us in the opposite direction of what we should be going in. We shouldn't be cutting funding for the poor and social safety net programs and children's health insurance to pay for tax cuts for people who already have more money than they'll ever be able to spend in their lifetime. We should be taxing the hell out of people like Jeff Bezos, who has $130.8 billion, who could never ever spend that much money in his lifetime. His children won't be able to spend all of that wealth. His grandchildren won't be able to spend all of that wealth when he ultimately passes it on to them. It's impossible. That's just so much money. So to them, they're just collecting money like it's a hobby when they don't need it. Meanwhile, Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean drinking water yet. There's extreme poverty in the United States. There's a state of emergency in Seattle where people are literally dying from homelessness. Our infrastructure is barely on par with third world countries, and yet we have to make sure that the rich get even richer in this country. This is what happens when you let capitalism run its course. It's devastating. It's exploitative. I mean, this is one of those stories where I don't really know what to say about it. It's disgusting. You kind of just have this reaction to it where you're repulsed by it. It's gross. We shouldn't even have to be arguing that this is wrong, but we're in a state of American politics where we have to say things that should be no-brainers. It's absurd. It feels like we're living in the Twilight Zone, and we're in the darkest timeline where the opposite of what Congress and the president should be doing is what they always do.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.